This is Reynolds Podcast, The Creative Mindset.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Creative Mindset, a podcast about what the future holds at the intersection of creativity and technology. I'm Ray Namoto, the founding partner of I&Co, a global innovation firm based in New York and Tokyo. Today's guest, Ginny Golden, the executive creative director at Yeti, a beloved outdoor gear company that made its name for creating the sturdiest cooler box that even a bear couldn't break into. The reason I wanted to talk to Ginny was because Yeti has suddenly become a brand that everybody was talking about in recent years, especially in the marketing and branding circle. In fact, Yeti has tripled its revenue in the last 7 years from $500 million to over $1.5 billion. I knew Ginny in my old job where I was the chief creative officer, and she was one of the rising creative directors who was doing amazing award-winning work from the Washington, D.C. office of AKQA, a global agency network we both worked for. She spent the first 15 years of her career in Washington, D.C. before finding her way to Portland, Oregon, where she worked for White & Kennedy, a legendary creative advertising agency famous for its Nike work. She returned to AKQA in Portland for several years before joining Yeti in August of 2020, becoming an in-house executive creative director to build a team for the brand that produces much talked about marketing and advertising content over the last several years. She shares some of her secrets behind growing an existing brand to a new height from within. So let's get started. All right, Ginny, good to see you.
Nice to see you, Ray. Always a pleasure.
Where are you?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, and the reason why you're in Austin, Texas is?
I work for Yeti.
Yes, and that's where your company's headquarters is, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I joined Yeti about 3 years ago. But I've been living in Austin, Texas for 2 years now.
2 years, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, you've spent a good chunk of time being a designer and then eventually a creative director, and you worked on, some of the best brands when you and I were at the AKQA together at the same company. Mm-hmm. Then eventually found your way into Yeti. But what was the impetus for that transition going from a design, digital, creative agency side to the brand side? Was it just the market? Was it your curiosity? Was it necessity? What was the reason for transition?
Well, I think, being agency side, whether it's AKQA, which their focus is very heavy on digital, or Widen, which is, coming from a more traditional space, you have these very almost narrow swim lanes, and I've operated in both, but what I wanted to do was get to a brand where I could play in the whole pool. Like I didn't want to be in a swim lane. Like I wanted to be able to work across the entire customer experience. And Yeti was just that opportunity where it was really a Goldilocks opportunity for me to be able to come in and blend, my two passions of creativity in the outdoors at the size that Yeti is right now, because we're not too small, we're not too big. We built an in-house agency where we do everything inside. Mm-hmm. So that means I get to influence the packaging that's on our products. Mm-hmm. I get to influence the stores that you walk into and you immerse yourself with your brand, mm-hmm. the website that you shop on, the campaigns, that try to reach, our customers. So being inside an agency the size of Yeti, you get to influence and impact all of those touch points.
Yeah. And when you joined, was there already an in-house agency, or was this something that you built when you joined?
There were about 10 in-house creatives when I joined.
Yeah.
But that was one of the reasons that they brought me in, was to help build the agency inside.
Right.
So we've grown the last 3 years from about 10 people to about 50 people in the creative studio.
Oh, wow. 5 times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include our content team, which helps us produce all the photography, all of our films.
Yeah.
And they have a very large team as well. Okay. And we partner very closely together. Yeah. But, they were very, like when I came in, it was very focused on, serving the business, on being very executional. And the transformation that I helped drive and others that have joined me in this effort has really been to create an ideas-led culture.
I guess, having more lanes to swim in, and not just to swim in, but to be able to oversee the entire pool and what's available to you. What's been the most difficult aspect of that transition?
Probably the most difficult of the transition, it was really the onboarding, I think, of coming in. And I'll just say like the first year was probably the most difficult because coming into Yeti, I'm like, I love the outdoors. They stand for the outdoors. They make outdoor products, and they're pretty dumb products in a way. They're not complicated tech, they're pretty like analog products.
Yeah.
I didn't think like when I came in, I was going to be hit with this like fire hose of information. And what I learned right off the bat was just how multidimensional the brand is and how much time it was going to take me to immerse myself in all those details and get caught up. And the details, it was like drinking from a fire hose of the breadth and depth of the product portfolio and understanding like all the specifics to the diversity of all the communities that we stand for, to the level of authenticity that we, pride ourselves on. And it's those details that really matter, that make the brand what it is. And when you're new to a brand and you're coming in, I just felt like there was so much catch up to do. It was that proverbial, like, you got to build the plane as you're flying it. So it's like, come in, create an in-house agency, get a grasp and become like a master of the voice of the brand, understand like the full like product portfolio. And there's so much to absorb, I think, from a historical context of like where the brand is coming from, but then also within 30, 60, 90 days, having to set a strategy of like where you want to be too. So it was the most, I think, difficult part was, it wasn't just, absorbing kind of a new client brief like you do at an agency. You're like, no, I am in this position to become a steward of this brand. So I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I gotta get in fast. I gotta get in deep, and really develop that like depth of understanding.
Yeah. You talked about just having to learn a lot of information and a lot of the details. Was there any specific surprising detail that you didn't know about the company or the brand that helped you understand the brand better early on?
I think I always point back to just how multidimensional it like Yeti is, like when you come inside. And I think that surprises people because people's relationship with Yeti, might be like, well, I'm an angler. And so I have a relationship with Yeti about like fishing, or like I'm a hunter, or I'm in like the beer and barbecue space. But when I came in, I was like, oh, I see. Like I almost equate it to Nike in a way, where Nike's like one swoosh and they have a bunch of sport categories, like soccer, football, women's training, and so on and so forth. Well, so does Yeti. And I just think, from the outside, I didn't realize the breadth and depth and the communities that I'm going to have to get immersed in and learn about to show up authentically, like with those details.
Yeah. When you say multidimensional, do you mean different types of activities, outdoor activities that Yeti is involved in? That's
right. So where we started, like the core of our brand started in the hunting and fishing community.
Right.
And then where we've seen growth is those communities introducing Yeti to other communities. So the growth has really been us following the tracks like of our products, like where they go. And so, the fish community introduced Yeti to the hunt community. The hunt community introduced it to ranch and rodeo. Ranch and rodeo introduced it to beer and barbecue, surf and skate. And, we've just been picking up and adding these relationships in these communities and coming into the brand, the number of, people relationships that are managed in those communities, the amount of detail like you need to know even as a copywriter to create a campaign for one of those communities. Like you want to show up in the most authentic way where, that community isn't going to read Yeti as a phony, right? Like we have to be just as knowledgeable the way we present ourselves for that community. So I'll give you an example. So my first month at Yeti, I was writing a treatment for a script, and it was about, I think we were launching like a new category of bags. And so it starts out with, the bag, like going through the little conveyor belt and the flaps at the airport. And we send it on like a wild, crazy journey in the outdoors from place to place to place. And in one of the events, a cowboy rides up with a lasso. And then I'm in the middle of like reading this treatment and I get stopped by the Ranch Rodeo community member. And he's just like, it's not a lasso, it's a rope, and it's like those details that matter. If we're talking about a loadout bucket and that it can hold fish, it doesn't hold fish, it can hold wherever you live your daily limit of walleye, which is a type of fish. So it's really getting down to that specificity that is part of the magic of the brand. But imagine just being a creative or a copywriter, and you come in and, you might love to like hike or fish on the weekends, but now all of a sudden you have to be an expert in hunting, fishing, beer, barbecue, surf, skate. So that's what I mean by like the multidimensional. Like it's really broad and really deep, like much deeper, I think, than I knew, from the outside.
Yeah. Coming into Yeti, and when you were making that transition, and you said that, you already loved the outdoors lifestyle, but in the language that you use, the pursuits, right? Was there a certain pursuit that you already had, or were you a more casual outdoors person? I'm
definitely casual. Like in Yeti standards, I am definitely casual. I mean, Yeah. Our communities they are the tip of the spear. They are such badasses. Like, we work with, the best climbers and anglers, and I mean, just the best pros in the space. So.
Right. Yeah.
I would definitely be considered like a recreationalist.
Yeah. So now that, you're deep on the inside of a fairly major brand, major corporation, and your capacity as a leader and as a creative individual, I would assume that there may be instances where there's a tension between what you think the work should be versus what a business thinks it should prioritize. Are there any tensions that you sense or you have come across? And can you talk about, I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's always this tension between what I call creativity and capitalism. Do you come across any of those tensions within your company?
I guess how I might want to respond to that question is like, well, if capitalism equates to commercial success and creativity is really about the brand, I really do think at Yeti, from the top down, it's really the brand that's driving the business. And, Matt Reinchast, like our CEO, he likes to talk a lot about the heart and soul of this company. And the heartbeat is really the product that we make and create and bring to market. And the soul is the brand. And that is really Yeti's power. But without a strong brand, I don't think you have commercial success at all. You're just a commodity. And then you're just competing with the numbers game, right? So it is really that heart and soul that I think is Yeti's power. And it's what, drives us, and it's what drives people to us.
So I guess it from the top down. And I was reading a little bit about Yeti before this, and it sounded like he came on as a CEO in 2015. And at that time, the commercial aspect of the company was about $500 million of revenue. And in the, 7 to 8 year tenure that he's had, it's now 1.5 billion in revenue. So it's 3 times in 7 years. And I mean, that's such a phenomenal growth. And based on what you have said, yes, the business is important, but it's really the heart and soul of what you do as a company that really drives commercial success.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. In the case of Yeti, and this is, before you had joined, so you may not have the visibility into what had happened. But again, just having read about the company before, it was started by two brothers about 17 plus years ago. And then it was sold to a private equity company and then it went public. And I've seen companies go through a similar trajectory. And especially like when the founders leave the company, the soul of the company gets somewhat gutted away with it. And it doesn't sound like that happened.
Not at all. I mean, Roy and Ryan Cedars are I feel like their spirit still occupies the halls of Yeti like every day.
In what way?
We just have an incredible founder story. I mean, I know I've brought up Nike a couple times, but the same way that Bill Bowerman and the waffle iron are legendary in the halls of Nike.
Yeah.
We have a bear-proof cooler Yeti, and right. It was that ethos of Roy and Ryan Cedars that our products were born out of frustration. They wanted a superior product that they could go out fishing with, stand on so they could do sightline fishing and be able to keep, that catch fresh, for days and coming back and extending their time in the wild. And that born from frustration ethos is still alive and well in everything that we do here. And it's really, that's where, the brand and the purpose are so intertwined that it influences the products we make. It influences what we stand for. It influences the communities that we support. But it all started with Roy and Ryan Cedars. And,
right.
We're, as you stated, we're only like 15 years old as a company. We're kind of in our adolescent years.
Right.
And 15 years ago, like Roy and Ryan Cedars were selling coolers out of the trunk of their car. Like that's how it started.
Right.
It started with a really heavy handshaking ground game of going out and, telling the story of this amazing product. And, we might have more scale and more budget now, but the spirit has not changed one bit.
When I worked on Nike probably over the course of 15 years off and on. And looking back now, there were certain artifacts that they preserved and they created and recreated over the years. And two things that stood out for me. One is Nike Maxims. They had these sayings within Nike, and it was 7 or 8 statements.
Yes.
That capture the ethos of Nike as a company. And those maxims became, hey, this is the Nike way. And when you were questioning what should I do, if you went back to one of those maxims, it could help make a decision. So the maxims as one set of artifacts that I found very useful. The other thing, and I've seen multiple versions of this, but the history of Nike. And oftentimes the history of Nike was told in small booklets, starting with the Bill Bowerman story, the waffle iron, shoes, how he started selling, and he and Phil Knight started selling those shoes out of a van for runners. So very similar origin story. But there was always a booklet of the history of Nike that employees and outside partners like AKK was and RGA when I was there could read to really understand the history, relatively quickly. So those two artifacts that I noticed were everybody knew about them, right? One way or another. Are there certain, what I call artifacts within Yeti that you said, tell the story of the founders and the heart and soul of the company? But what are the artifacts that you saw when you came in, and how are those stories preserved and told?
We've just recently, over the past year, really started to create those artifacts. And we really saw the need of it because of how quickly we were growing, with a creative studio that went from 10 people to 50 people. It's like, you need those storytelling artifacts, right? But I think what Yeti has relied on up until this past year, when we really started to try to put some of those tools together, is just being here together in Austin, Texas, in these halls, and all sitting together, all in the same place. Like, so we are not a remote company. We are very much in person, where who is designing the product, who is selling the product, who in the community is using the product. And we're all just in one mixing bowl. So up until this date, it was really in-person relationships, being immersed in the brand and having access, to all of that information.
Wow. So just physically together in one place is a big factor.
Yes. Physically together. Yeah.
From an outside perspective, being just a general consumer, I don't necessarily count myself as an outdoors enthusiast by any means, but just in the last 12 to 18 months or so, I'm just hearing and seeing Yeti's name way more than I ever had. I was aware of Yeti for the past 10 years, but it's really within the past year to 2 years, which kind of coincides with the timing of your tenure at Yeti as well. But is that my illusion, or just in the last year to 2 years, the awareness and the cultural relevance of Yeti has gotten so much higher than it was? From a marketing perspective, from the branding and marketing perspective, I see Yeti's name mentioned way more in the marketing professionals as a good example, case study of a brand gaining relevance. So not too long ago, there was a Fast Company article, an interview with the CEO, and how he was, and then I guess the rest of the organization is not trying to hurry with the growth of the company and, respecting the slow nature of brand building. And it was so refreshing to hear from a CEO of a public company, because in the public business space, it's grow, faster. The faster you grow, the better you are as a company, or at least it seems like. Whereas it was refreshing to hear a deliberate approach to brand building and the storytelling of the brand, as well as the product development of the brand. Yeah. So my vantage point might be a little bit skewed in that I'm looking at it from a marketing and a creative lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also the fact that in the last 7 years, the company grew from 500 million to 1.5 billion, 3 times. And that's a pretty significant growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
it is.
Yeah. What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think, it's secret sauce. I love that word because, to have a really good sauce, I think you need a couple different ingredients. You need a couple different components to make it sing. And, our sauce is named Built for the Wild. That's our tagline. And what the wild means in that tagline is wild people, wild places, and wild products, and believing the best of human nature can be found in nature. And I think that's what, drives us. It's what drives people to us. And that's what they feel. I think, in terms of growth, it's really important that we grow authentically, and when we're doing it in the right pace, like Matt, has said in some articles, and really just, I think, staying true to the brand. But I think what is happening out there in culture is, people are starting to discover our superpower. And I think our superpower exists in the versatility of our products and the durability of our products. I mean, we build products to last for generations. They are very high quality. They last. They're super tough. They're durable. And what we've found in the diversity of our communities is that they can be used in a lot of different ways. And they show up in different places, but we are always the same. So whether it's in a hog hunt in the South or a happy hour in the Hamptons, you're going to find Yeti in both of those places, and both of those communities embrace Yeti and welcome people in.
Yeah. What the company has been doing hasn't changed actually all that much. Stay true to the core. You stay true to the core, know who you are, having a conviction, having a strong belief about what makes your brand. But it sounds like the culture, the Geist, if I may say so, has finally caught up and has discovered Yeti. And yeah, of course, it might be for the hunters and the fly fisher people, but I can actually use this for something else. And to your point, the versatility and the durability, while those things are specific to a pretty niche audience, it's actually applicable to a wider range of people.
That's right. That's right. I would say, over the 15 years, it started with a very, very core outdoor audience with fish and hunt. And the aperture, I think, especially over the last 5 years, has really just busted open, where people have discovered our products and found a use for them in their lives.
Yeah. But there must be, say, in the past 5 years, and when it comes to, say, quote unquote, brand building, there must be new things that you have done. So give me an example of things that you started that Yeti started in the past 5 years that have served the brand well. And also, and I think this would be great for us to uncover maybe some of the things that didn't work out as well as you thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think going back to what we've been trying to build here with our creative studio, our agency inside, is moving to a more ideas-led culture and trying to come up with different, unique ways that we can connect with our audiences. And we've talked a lot in this conversation about, is there tension between commercial and creativity and capitalism? We're a business and we have challenges just like any other business. Sometimes for campaigns, we have generous budgets, and sometimes for campaigns we have really scrappy budgets, but we don't, I think, necessarily have a rule book of, how we try to harness creativity to connect with our customers. And, there's been 2 pieces of work that I think illustrate that over the last year that we've done, where one is it's gotten some recognition in the marketing and advertising industry. It was called Year in Preview, and we launched it at a time, it was the end of the year, and it's when, most brands like Spotify or Google do a year in review and they look backwards. But Yeti wanted to buck the status quo, and we wanted to look forward. We wanted to do the year in preview. And, one of the insights that we have at Yeti is going back to the multidimensional brand is we stand for and support so many communities, and we want people to get outside and enjoy the wild, but sometimes that's, intimidating. And it's where do I start? So we created a digital experience where you can come in and answer a couple, short questions about what you're interested in. And then we generate a personalized, curated calendar for you of over 130 events of everything that you could do in the next year with your Yeti products and within the Yeti communities. And you can download that right to your phone. And so for us, it's just saying hey, you're going to get a lot of use out of all of your Yeti gear. Here's what you can do to get after it in the next year. So instead of looking back, we wanted you to look forward and plan your wildest year yet. And, that was something that really we sourced from our community marketing team. We pulled the best events together. That was a lot of work on our part. And we identified this is going to be one of our big swings for the year. This is something that I think has a lot of utility, but it has a lot of value and has, can really inspire people to get outside more. So that got a lot more investment from us. But on the flip side, we have a very dedicated community that goes out into the wild and they lose a lot of gear, apparently. And we learned that over 14,000 items are lost in national parks every year. And when we were launching our cargo gear boxes, we came up with the idea that we were going to go to Craigslist, where most of those items are posted lost. It's like the world's biggest lost and found. And we were going to go in and turn those gear losers into gear winners. And this was something that was so scrappy and more of a surprise and delight thing, where we worked with some of our best ambassadors to take these gear boxes and kit them up with whatever people lost, which is whether it's their, ice picks or their tackle boxes. And we would fill them up, send them to the people that had posted that they lost the gear with a personalized message from our ambassadors. And that's not something that got a big, media spend. It was just something that, we wanted to do to support those communities in a surprise and delight way.
You mentioned throughout this conversation the word community quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you said that there's a dedicated community marketing team, which is a separate team from a creative team. Is that right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, just to break it down for the audience here, the listeners here, can you be a bit more specific about what it is that they do, like on a day-to-day, and what how does that work? Building a community sounds like a simple thing, but actually building a community takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So how do they make that happen?
What our community marketing team does is they nurture and cultivate and strengthen the relationships of those communities. So we have on our staff at Yeti Inside, like the best almost experts in pros. So in the ranch and rodeo space, like we have a great woman who has been in that space and has ridden and competed and just knows the community inside and out and has been a part of this community and has, those relationships, which helps us, get those insights, get access to what they care about, their voices, what they need from Yeti, to be quite honest. And the community marketing team, helps facilitate, a lot. They bring in people from those communities to consult with the people in Yeti that are designing our products, to hear like what they need out of our products. Anytime we do production shoot or a campaign, we don't use models. Like we don't use influencers. We use real people, from our communities. So we're always going to our community marketing team saying like, hey, we've got this moment coming up. We think we really want to lean into the surf community. Who do we want to pull together to be working with? And, a lot of the magic, I think, that I feel, especially working at Yeti, it's when those communities cross paths. We recently did a story for our printed magazine. It's like a magalog, if you will, where we took a surf ambassador, a barbecue pitmaster, and a professional skateboard, and we took them out and let them experience an old world hog hunt where the pitmaster, got to, beat everybody with what they hunted, which was the hog at the end of the day, and it was seeing the surfer, the skater, and the pitmaster, like all mixing and all interacting with each other, that I think just really becomes like the essence of this brand and the power of this brand and how those communities cross paths, open minds, and inspire each other.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, another word that you may not have mentioned in this conversation much, but like what I'm taking away, and this, I hesitate to use this word just because it becomes such a cliche word, but like being authentic is so easy to say, but at the same time, there's power in that authenticity, and the fact that what you just mentioned, that you don't use models, but you use real people in those communities to highlight whatever that they might be into. Yeah, that's such a, in a way, a simple thing to do, but at the same time, it may be difficult for some companies to stick to.
I mean, it is, and I love that you picked up on that word, because when I was in Portland and we were always working for Nike, it's like if I had $1 for every time I heard the word premium, it would be a very first one.
Yeah.
And for us at Yeti, the word is authentic. Like it comes up a lot. It is a defining characteristic of this brand.
Yeah.
It helps us stay true to the brand. It really is our truth. And it is something that takes a little while for new creatives coming into the brand to learn. Like we don't rely on gimmicks, tricks, actors, a lot of contrived settings, performative, all the tricks you've learned at your agency. Like you come here and there's like a boot camp and a time where it's like, you have to learn the difference of, what is a good idea and what is a good Yeti idea. And those things are very different. Yeah. Cause you might come up with an amazing concept that's like, oh, that's a can-winning award idea right there. But, you start circulating it in the halls of Yeti and you go to our community marketing team and they're just like, what is that? Like, that's for advertising people. Right. Like that's not authentic. Like that's not for our community. And so we, and that's what I mean by it's like staying true to the brand. Like we're not going to chase trends. We're not going to chase gimmicks. And that's true on, both the marketing advertising side and that's true on the business side as well.
No, this is super, super fascinating. And some of the things that you've said make total sense. And at the same time, like I said earlier, just because, I work with quite a few clients and how difficult it is to execute on those beliefs and promises. Because especially like if you're in the retail business, it's a quarterly seasonal business. And if you're not making the numbers this quarter, you have to make up for the loss the next quarter and so forth. It is a brutal cycle and it's easy to lose sight of the basic foundational beliefs that you have as a brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there's one thing, I've learned coming into brand side is you really do have to operate in two speeds. You're always going to have those daily, weekly demands, but you also need to be thinking about the long term and what your strategy is for the future and, how to start making, movements and putting a plan together to like get there.
Lightning questions.
During the interview, we dig deep into different topics surrounding creativity. On the contrary, with this section, we ask the same questions to the guests to react on the spot, and we don't let them see the questions in advance.
Question number 1, if you weren't doing this, what else would you be doing?
Scuba diving in Bali.
Question number 2, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Bali.
Question number 3, and this might be the same answer, where's the next place you'd like to travel to?
Well, okay, this could be a little bit different. I really want to get up to Canada, probably like the Banff area. And it's because we have some amazing photographers all over the world. And I recently saw a photo shoot up there and I'm ready to go. I want to go there.
Wow. Question number 4, your favorite food?
I argue with my kids about this all the time because they don't like it, but I love a good chicken pot pie. Can you believe it? A 5-year-old that doesn't like chicken pot pie.
What?
I know. It's insane.
Yeah. Question number 5, what's your favorite song or favorite type of music?
I've been really into some retro new wave music. I think my team's going to kill me because I'm putting it on Spotify in the studio all the time, but I just am really in a 90s phase right now.
What was the biggest turning point in your life?
Well, I think it's going back to American University and meeting Professor Graham and him giving me the opportunity and the invitation to interview for my job at AKQA.
Wow. Well, so the follow-up question would be, so after that, any additional turning point during your professional career?
Yeah, I would say it was probably my move to Portland, Oregon. I think everyone anticipated me going to a bigger market. The move from DC would have either been New York City or San Francisco, where, they're creative hubs for advertising. And I chose Portland, a smaller market. And why Kennedy?
what would be your advice to a 22-year-old Ginny, but in 2023, 2024?
If I was going to give advice to young people, I would be, just make sure you're kind of presenting yourself, I think, with what I call the 3 H's.
Okay, do tell.
And I talk a lot about this. It's what I look for in like every recruit that I interview. It's like you have to be hungry, you have to have hustle, you have to be hardworking, and oh my Lord, you got to be a little bit humble. Because for every 100 ideas that you pitch, you might get one made. But I just, ego does not work for me, especially with collaboration, like in that space. So I really look for those characteristics. And I think if creatives like really focus on those aspects in their career, like they will rise, like they will do well.
You said 3H, but I think I heard 4, right? So it was hungry, hustle, hardworking, and humble.
Yeah, 4. Sorry, the 4 H's.
4 H's. What is your superpower?
Well, I love, I think, building teams and bringing people together to solve problems. My style of leadership, I think, is a style of bringing service to the role, where it doesn't always have to be my idea, but I like pulling the best minds together to solve the idea.
Last question. What is creativity to you?
Oh, it's my lifeblood. I think it's what gets me out of bed every morning and coming into this job. I see creativity everywhere. I think it's solving problems in an unexpected way, and the old-fashioned dot connecting, I'd say.
Excellent.
That was my conversation with Ginny Golden, the Executive Creative Director at Yeti, a much beloved outdoor brand that has grown tremendously in the last several years. So here are my 3 key takeaways from the chat. Key takeaway number 1, trying to appeal to everyone appeals to no one. Key takeaway number 2, relentlessly pursue what you love. And number 3, sincerity is the new creativity. So the first point, trying to appeal to everyone appeals to no one. In the old world, say before the smartphones around 2008, mass media reigned supreme, and it was important for brands to create awareness about the brand among as many people as possible by relying on mass media such as TV, maybe radio, magazines, newspapers, what people assumed was mass. But after the introduction and the proliferation of smartphones, and over 90% of the Western countries and cultures have adopted these devices that can deliver different types of information, different types of content, video, sound, what have you. There's no such thing as mass media anymore, even though everybody has a device that can access these pieces of information. Media has become so fragmented that it's really micromedia. And that gets to key takeaway number 2, relentlessly pursue what you love. So since there is no such thing as mass media anymore, trying to reach as many people as possible or appeal to as many people as possible is a fruitless and futile exercise. But by focusing on a niche topic, an interest, or even a market, we can still create an audience that's big enough to build a business and build a brand. Yeti is an excellent case study to illustrate this point of not trying to appeal to everyone and relentlessly pursuing what you love. Yeti was founded by Roy and Ryan Cedars in 2006, and I'm reading this from a Wikipedia entry. The brothers grew up in Texas and spent a large portion of their childhood outdoors. Their father, Roger Cedars, was an entrepreneur that designed a fishing rod epoxy. In 2006, Ryan started Waterloo Rods and sold the company 9 years later. Roy, an angler and hunter, began his career making custom boats that were designed for fishing in shallow depth areas in the Texas Gulf Coast. The avid outdoorsman became frustrated with the quality of the coolers available and founded Yeti in response. So as you can see, this is such a specific point of view, specific interest that they had, and started making a very specific thing. I'm not sure if Roy and Ryan Cedars did enough market research to have the conviction that there would be enough audience who would buy a cooler that would cost $275 at least. I mean, I've bought a cooler, maybe one, maybe two in my lifetime, and each one cost barely $50. So for me to spend more than $250 on a cooler was not really a need that I would have, but it turned out, as you can see, enough people were interested in buying a $250 plus cooler to use outdoors and have the kind of quality that would make that product durable for tough use outside over and over and over. So these points, trying to appeal to everyone appeals to no one, and relentlessly pursue what you love. Roy and Ryan proved that point. And what I do wonder, going to my earlier point about the end of mass media, I wonder if a brand such as Yeti, which caters to a specific niche market, succeeded primarily not only because there was a big enough need, but because in the age of micromedia, the audience was able to find a specific thing for their specific interest, and they were able to reach a brand like Yeti to purchase such a specific and expensive product. By pursuing what you love relentlessly, that allows us to capture people's hearts and minds, and that also leads to a product that is truly good and truly meets and serves the interest of that specific audience. Key takeaway number 3, sincerity is the new creativity. When thinking about the takeaways, one of the words that came to my mind was authenticity. But I feel like authenticity is such an overused term in marketing these days that it's starting to lose its meaning. Instead, I specifically chose the word sincerity because the approach that these brothers took, as well as the marketing and the creative approach that Ginny's team takes, is to be as sincere as possible. Having a point of view that is not reactive to what's happening around us or what is just trendy, or trying to create a buzz, is not really the motive behind the recent work that Ginny's team has done that speaks to this specific niche audience. They're not trying to be trendy to them, but they're trying to be sincere to them. And that is what's working for the brand and for the marketing approach that they take. So to summarize, the 3 key takeaways from the conversation with Ginny. Number 1, trying to appeal to everyone appeals to no one. Key takeaway number 2, relentlessly pursue what you love. And number 3, sincerity is the new creativity. So this was my conversation with Ginny Golden, the executive creative director at Yeti. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and that these key takeaways can be useful for whatever endeavor you might pursue. If you're listening to this on Spotify, there is a Q&A input, so please do send your questions and comments. If you like our podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating. We'll be so grateful. I'm Ray Namoto, and this is The Creative Mindset. See you next time.